Hey, welcome to Life Church 360. My name is Matt Morgan. I get to be the lead pastor, and I'm so glad that you're with us online. I love the fact that we have an online church, and this is a full-on church, so we hope that you get connected here. You can be a part of our church. You can serve online. You can also join a life group online. And we want you to be a part of your church. We exist to help all people build a life-giving relationship with Jesus. And that's our biggest goal. We want you to experience what Jesus said in John 10:10. He said that I've come to give you a rich and satisfying life. And that richness is something that's internal. It's not an external thing. In fact, you can have that richness and peace and satisfaction with God even when everything else is chaotic on the outside. And we do it in 4 ways. And this is called loving God, which is L. I is invest in others. F is faithfully serve, and E is encourage the world. It's the life model of ministry. That's why we're called Life Church 360. And today we're beginning a series called The Floor is Lava. And I want to make sure that you understand, we're not doing a hellfire and brimstone message, okay? It's not about that. I want to give you a sample of what I'm talking about when I say the floor is lava. Have you ever realized as you're talking with somebody, you just stepped in lava? Well, a few weeks ago, I was at a golf tournament in Coeur d'Alene. And the second day, I got to play with a ringer, which means he's a really good golfer, and I'm not a really good golfer. And we won our flight, which was really fun because you get a great prize. And we go into the luncheon afterwards, and I'm kind of walking around the back, and there's these guys sitting there, and they were laughing, having a great. I'm like, going, these guys would be fun to sit with. And I said, hey, you guys mind if I sit down? And they said, no, go ahead, have a seat. And so I sit down, and they say, where are y'all from? And I said, oh, I'm just from Seattle. It's just about 6 hours over here to the west. And they said, oh, we're from Arkansas. And I said, right on, that's awesome. And we start talking, and they start ribbing me, and I start ribbing them. And it's just kind of going great. We're talking about our golf game, and all of a sudden, the guy says, so what are y'all doing about this COVID junk? And I went, oh, okay. I could tell that we probably already have a difference of opinion. And I said, well, we are navigating it. It's been a real difficult year, but, things are going good. And what are you guys doing? And he said, well, we're just ignoring all of it. We don't care about this. I mean, this is a bunch of junk. It's a garbage. You know what I'm saying? And here's the deal. We're not doing anything. The government cannot tell us what to do. We have the freedom of religion. I'm like, yes, we do. I mean, so thankful for our freedom. And I'm trying to find some common ground. He just kept on going, and he said, we've been fined, but we're just not going to pay it. And I'm like, really? It's not going to? Yeah, we're just not going to. We don't care. And I said, okay. And so he says, what are you guys doing? And I said, well, we've had a lot of people up in the Seattle area, and a lot of people have had people get sick, and as you know, it really originated not too far, in the U.S., right down the road from us, and people are afraid of it, and we've just decided, for the sake of our community, we're going to really mind the rules and let the community know how much we love them and care for them, and so we went online, and we've done parking lot church, and now we're in person now, but we're minding the rules, and he's like, oh, he kind of got a little bit gruff, and then changed the subject, and later he comes back just to kind of again reaffirm his position, and I just thought, man, I'm standing in lava right now. And if I go into this and do any disagreement, this is going to get worse. Because just the moment I said we're minding the rules, he was giving me ammunition about, why they're not and other churches that aren't. And it's amazing to me how quickly in the last really, 19 months, a subject matter comes up, and all of a sudden, the floor is turned to lava. It's red hot, bare-knuckled fighting. I don't know about your last Thanksgiving, but our last Thanksgiving was a little awkward, right? Because that was when the church was, okay, going to wear a mask or not wear a mask. They were telling us to not get together for Thanksgiving. We did with a smaller group of family members, and it just got awkward. And I've seen it all throughout the year. Family members, best friends at odds with each other because of differing opinions. And in this last 19 months, the red versus blue thing, the Republican Democrat, how Republicans just seem to hate Democrats and Democrats seem to hate Republicans, and you can't talk about it because people get so upset, and the people who think that you should have shut down church and went online, and the people who think no way, we're not going to do that, and the people who think you should wear a mask, and the people who think you shouldn't wear a mask, and how they just can't get along anymore, and then Black Lives Matter, it's like you either have to be all Black Lives Matter, which I think Black Lives Matter, racism is an abomination to God, but at the same time, I support the police, and I think there's some really, there's some bad police people out there, but there's a lot of great police, and man, we just don't want to forget the police, and it's like, you have to choose one or the other, or they don't like each other, and I just want to go back to the days of Ford versus Chevy. How about if we argue about whether you drive a Ford or a Chevy, or coffee or tea, because today it's getting so much worse. Now we're at vax or no vax, right? And that's we're going to talk more about that next week, but this idea of you got to inject something in your body or you're going to lose your job. There's so many things where the floor has just become lava, and it might sound drastic, but the reality is there's so much controversy and so the fighting and the hatred and the villainization of people has become so strong that I think we need to look at some really strong biblical theology so that we can become better at the art of conflict, and we can become better at being representatives of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm going to talk really directly to Christians today, and I recognize and realize, and I'm so grateful that many people come to our church that aren't yet Christians, and people watch and be a part online, and I want you to know that you don't have to be a Christian to be a part of who we are. We are followers of Jesus, and we want you to become one, but here's the deal. That needs to happen on your time frame, and you need to ask all the questions you want to ask, and today's a great day for you because you're going to get a peek behind the curtain. This is what Christians are supposed to be like. And so I'm going to really talk it as Christians, and you, as you consider the claims of Christ, you can kind of go, well, hey, that's what Christians are supposed to be. Today I've entitled the message, Monkey in the Middle. I don't know if you've ever played the game Keep Away before, but we played it a lot when I was a kid on the playground. And the keep away thing, the two kids are throwing the ball back and forth, and we'll just say the ball's like an opinion, right? And they throw it, and then they throw it and they throw it, and they throw it. And the monkey in the middle is trying to get the ball. Well, here's what I've learned about being a Christian. As followers of Jesus, we must grow comfortable being caught in the middle. Do you know that Jesus was always being put in the middle? The religious leaders, they were the ones that said, we follow God, we're right, and everybody else is wrong. And then people who were far from God, Jesus was in the middle of these guys. But Jesus, what they didn't realize is what Jesus was doing was he was standing in the middle of people who were far from God, and God. He was trying to bring the two together. He was kind to people who really didn't want to follow God, didn't act like they followed God, and really had no intentions of ever following God. The woman at the well, right? The Samaritan woman. Jesus was kind to her. And by the way, Jewish men would not talk to a woman in broad daylight that wasn't their spouse, let alone a Samaritan. Samaritans were half-breeds. You want to talk about racism? It was big time back then. And so that was a big deal. Jesus would even talk to her and be nicer. Jesus made a Samaritan man a hero of one of his parables. It's called the Good Samaritan. You've probably heard of it before. That was a big deal to all of them. Jesus, the woman caught in adultery, the Pharisees, they wanted to stone her to death. Jesus saved her life. One of his disciples was a tax collector. I'm named after him. His name's Matthew, right? When Jesus went to dinner at Matthew's house, they said, why does your disciples and your teacher eat with such scum? Notorious sinners, they would call him at Zacchaeus' house. Jesus was constantly putting himself in the middle and here's the deal, intentionally, at great cost to himself, Jesus was putting himself in between those who were far from God and the Father. He stands in the gap. Last week, we talked about the fact that the church is the longest lasting, biggest team sport that ever has been and ever will be. Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will never beat it. If you're looking for evidence of the deity of Christ, that he was God, think about this for a second. 2,000 years ago, he started the church with 11 guys. You might go, he had 12 disciples. He did, but one of them, remember, betrayed him and left him. So with 11 guys, he starts the church, and these guys, after witnessing the arrest, the beating, the crucifixion, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus, they begin the church. And 2,000 years later, it's over 1 billion people and still going and growing. That is the power of God. The Apostle Paul was one of the early converts to Christianity. He was a religious leader. He was a Pharisee of all Pharisees, he called himself. He hated Christians, and he wanted to kill them. He was there when they stoned Stephen to death in the book of Acts. He was on his way to get a writ from the government where he would be able to prosecute and imprison and kill Christians. And Jesus gets a hold of his heart. He then starts planting churches all over the known world because he's just this great evangelist apostle. And then later he writes them letters, which is what we call 1/3 of the New Testament. In 2 Corinthians, the church in Corinth gets a letter from Paul, and he says this: He, speaking of Jesus, he died for everyone so that those who receive his new life will no longer live for themselves. Instead, let's talk about us. They will live for Christ, who died and was raised for them. So we have stopped evaluating. Listen to this part. We have stopped evaluating others from a human point of view. At one time, we thought of Christ merely from a human point of view. How differently we know him now. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. And all of this is a gift from God, who brought us back to himself through Christ. Now look, he says, and God has given us this task of reconciling people to him. For God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. And he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation. So we are Christ's ambassadors. God is making his appeal through us. We speak for Christ when we plead, come back to God. I want to take a little bit of time here and break down this passage and look at it through the lenses of the heated culture that we're living in today. So think about the heated culture we're in and the mandate of Christ. The first thing is we do not evaluate people from a human point of view. I got to tell you, when I sat down at that table and they said, where are y'all from? And I said, from Seattle. They said, we're from Arkansas. I was already evaluating them from a human point of view. What's the human point of view? The human point of view can be summed up in a lot of ways. I think one of the ways it can be summed up is you can say the human point of view is, hey, this is all there is. We live, we die. So we better get and do all that we can while we're here and get it our way, or else we're not going to be happy. And so the human point of view is do it my way. Some lean to the left, others to the right. Some think everybody should get vaccinated. Others feel it is a violation of their rights to have someone tell them what they have to inject into their body. I could go on and on and on. You can see what I'm talking about. We have different points of view. In fact, me saying that, you might just feel a little bit of tension rising up in you right now. I think that's a healthy thing to recognize the tension. The human point of view is really dependent on your perspective, on the way you see things. Right now, you're watching me through a camera. Now, I'm not sure which camera that you're on. We have more than one camera in here. But if we change the camera view, now you have a different perspective. I'm not going to move. You're just going to get a different camera view here. So now you have a different perspective, right? If I move, now I have a different perspective. And I might look at that camera and have a perspective of there, or I might look over here, or I might look at this one, and there's a different perspective. If we were in the room, okay, you would be lower than I am because I'm on a stage, and I'd be able to see you differently than you see me. We could change that perspective, and then our view would also change. A relational way of saying a different view would be this, to say, from my understanding, this is what I think is right. That's a relational way of saying it. A demanding way to say this is, I'm right, you're wrong. My perspective is the right perspective, and your perspective is wrong. And everybody must believe what I believe. James, the brother of Jesus, he wrote the book of James, and he says this: what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire but do not have, so you kill. You covet but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Why is there conflict all around us? Why is the conflict getting so heated it just feels like you're standing in lava? Well, because we all have our own desires. We have our own perspective. And we want in everyone else to do what we think is right because we think that's what's right and that's what's going to make everybody happy and everybody fulfilled. But everybody else has a different perspective as well. Considering the passage from 2 Corinthians, what are we supposed to be like as Christians? Well, there was a couple words there. What does an ambassador or a reconciler do? If you were an ambassador of the United States and we were to put you in North Korea, and you represent the United States in North Korea, what you would be doing is you would have to look like, act like, talk like, listen like, respond like, and be like what an American is supposed to be, do, act, listen, the whole 9 yards, right? You represent America. Scripture says that we represent Jesus, that we would look like Jesus would look, the way, our demeanor, our attitude. We would listen like Jesus. We would act like Jesus. We would do like Jesus. We're an ambassador. And then it says we are reconcilers. What does a reconciler do? A reconciler stands in the middle, in that gap, and brings the two sides together. Remember 2 Corinthians verses 17 through 20. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. We aren't selfish anymore. We don't demand our own way. We're more like Christ. And all of this is from a gift from God who brought us back to himself through Christ. And God has given us this task of reconciling people to him. For God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. And he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation. So we are Christ's ambassadors. God's making his appeal through us. How's the world going to know about Jesus? They're going to watch us. We're representing him. What if we could become very secure in Christ? That we wouldn't be threatened by who's in government. We wouldn't be threatened by whether you get vax or not vax, or mask or no mask, or any other one of the issues that have happened over these last several months. And we just said, you know what, I'm okay with Jesus, and Jesus is in charge. He's got all things under control. He's got the whole world in his hands. Remember that one as a little kid? What if we believed that? What if we could have total trust that God has always and will always have control? Romans 13, one of the reasons we chose to follow the rules, it says everyone must submit to the governing authorities, for all authority comes from God. And those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. Do you know that God is not surprised by what's going on? He is in control. The hard part is I'm not in control. You're not in control. God is in control. What if we focused on what we could control? What if we focused our energy on doing what God has tasked us to do? What if we saw ourselves in every situation as an ambassador of Jesus, as reconcilers between people who do not want to follow God and the loving God who gave his one and only Son so they can have the blessings that he has for their life? See, we could very easily make the mistake that we're in the middle of people in sin. Like we're trying to get them to stop sinning. That's what we're trying to do. We're in the middle of between Jesus, who loves you, cares about you and everybody else, and you are somebody who doesn't want to follow him. That's where we're in the middle. And it's uncomfortable. And it's not very fun. We're not trying to force people to stop sinning. We're trying to show people how awesome Jesus is. As I read Scripture, I'm incredibly challenged to check my heart and my attitude and my ego. For instance, in Philippians chapter 2, it says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on the cross. Why are so many Christians demanding their way? Why are so many Christians today saying what we need is a government who will mandate our morality? Who will tell people how to behave, and then we'll be a Christian nation again. That's not how it works. People will follow God because they invite Jesus into their life, and he changes them from the inside out. It's not because they're mandated to do anything. We become so selfish and so arrogant that we think of ourselves far more than we do other people. Our attitude is to dominate and to win, not to lay down our rights. To lay down our authority, to lay down our powers. That's what Jesus did. 2 Timothy says, again I say, don't get involved in foolish, arrogant arguments that only start fights. A servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone, be able to teach and be patient with difficult people, not just be able to do this with easy people, do it with difficult people. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants. My first instinct is to fight. You got to fight for your right. I won't finish that song because it gets really bad after that. But here's the deal. I tend to want to force my way. Shortly after this luncheon, we had gotten home and we were at a friend's house for dinner. And they had some other friends that we hadn't met there. And they were talking about the whole, vaccine thing. And they were talking about COVID and their opinion of COVID and all this stuff. And this person that was talking, he had done a lot of research. Lots of it. He had a ton of information and he was sharing it. And I was just trying to listen and gain common ground. And I was trying to be gentle, but I started to kind of assert my, because he had said some stuff that wasn't accurate. And I just wanted to let him know that wasn't how it worked and scientifically. And so, Tina is tapping my leg, Matt, and just this is the under the table thing. Stop it. Don't start anything. And I wasn't trying to start anything, but I wasn't fully listening, right? And I kept kind of, and I could feel, you just feel that inside of you. You just want to say something. And I missed something critical that he said. Well, I had stopped talking because Tina, I didn't want to bruise my leg any worse than it was. And so I stopped talking. And Tina said in the car on the way home, she said, Matt, did you hear what he said? I said, yeah. No. Did you hear what else he said? I said, no, I didn't hear what he said. He said, I've done a lot of research. And I just want someone to listen to me. Wow. Do you know the greatest need a human being has is to be understood? It's the greatest need we have. Beyond human touch, but to be understood is that intimacy between people. And I said to Tina, Tina, the next time that happens, because it probably will happen. I'm a talker, I'm a pastor, I'm a talker, right? So I said, Tina, if that ever happens again, I want you to just stop right there and say, hey, Matt, just a second. Hey, and just say the person's name. What I heard you say right there is you just want someone to listen to you. Is that what you mean? You want someone to listen to you? You know what? Matt and I want to listen to you. Please say what you want to say. We want to hear what you have to say. And that will be code for me, Tina, to shut my mouth. Because I need that sometimes. I need to just shut up and listen. Which leads me to what I think we should do this week. Here is why I just did this whole talk. Would you listen to other people, even if they have a different opinion than you? Even if you don't think the facts they have are right. Even if they're heated and they want to get you to do what they think that you should do. Would you listen? Just listen. Ask them, what I hear you saying is this, is that correct? Is this what you meant? Thank you for sharing your opinion. Thank you for sharing that with me. Hey, that must be hard. Or I think, yeah, that's got to be difficult. And yeah, that's a really hard thing right now. Just listen. Next week, we're going to talk about recognizing and managing our emotions well. Because if we can manage our own emotions well, others will be able to manage theirs well. And we could stop this thing from heating up. Let's pray. Jesus, we love you. And we want to be great examples of who you are. I pray, Jesus, for anyone here today and watching or listening, that they would just say, okay, I need help. I have been a part of letting that lava get out of control. Help me, Jesus, to represent you to others the way you should be represented. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, we love you guys. Have a great week.